Just going by the theme of transformative change, all I can say is that I think what we need when it comes to budgeting is like we haven't done much for early child development. This I can attest, like in the case of Syringe, where we have ZOCs, which stands for Zambia Open Community Schools. They're actually doing quite a lot to just amend the gaps in our community. But the thing is, ZOCs is also a sponsored thing, not direct from the government. I think we know Federa, that tennis player, is the one who's actually sponsoring the ZOCs. Now, with the rumors of moving, since it has come now to the end of the agreement, it means now we have a gap. This investment needs to do quite a lot so that we put in some money through the budget which can continue with the development of our children.
Honorable, what role should members of parliament play in supporting local authorities to effectively deliver early childhood development services at community level?
I think this, all I can say is that together with the WDCs, the actual people who initiate these things, I think we can have a round table so that we don't just end up at building schools and other things, but also look at the infrastructure for early child development.
Honorable, I would like to thank you so much for featuring on this interview.
Thank you.
All right, that was Serenge, Member of Parliament, Mr. George Kandafula, just giving us his reactions to the theme for today, of course, from policy to practice. How can Parliament bring about informative change in the early childhood development in Zambia? And so anytime from now, we should have the first segment of our panel discussion. Under the theme from policy to practice, how can Parliament bring about transformative change in the early childhood development in Zambia? And in case this is when you are tuning in,
good morning, parents. Good morning, everyone here. Welcome back to the second session of this program. At this juncture, I would like to invite Mrs. Edith Ngoma, who's going to take us through this session, and just to welcome the panelists. Over to you, Mrs. Ngoma.
Thank you very much. May I be allowed to write on the protocols that were already observed this morning? Thank you so much. We would like to thank everyone for joining us to attend this important discussion on early childhood development. Today, we aim to explore how Zambia can accelerate progress in ECD through strong policies, adequate financing, and collaborative action. ECD is not just a social issue, it is an economic and human capital investment that shapes the future of our nation. I would like at this moment to just take a few minutes to introduce the panelists to all of you. On my immediate left, we have Dr. Given Hapunda, who is also a professor of pediatric and developmental psychology at UNZA. Given Hapunda is a professor of pediatric and developmental psychology at the University of Zambia with over 17 years of research experience in child and adolescent development across Southern and East Africa. He leads the Department of Psychology, teaches various psychology courses, and supervises students. Beyond academia, he founded a research consultancy and participates in multiple national and international projects focused on early childhood development and psychosocial aspects of childhood illnesses. He is also actively involved in professional organizations related to child development, holding leadership roles such as President of the Psychology Association of Zambia and contributing to several research and advisory committees. May we welcome Dr. Hapunda. In the middle, we have Dr. Zewelanji Sepo, who is the ECD specialist at UNICEF Zambia. Dr. Zewelanji Sepo is an accomplished early childhood development specialist with 20 years plus of international experience leading large-scale education research projects, child development programs, and driving policy reform, advancing evidence-based advocacy. In her current role as an education specialist in UNICEF, Zambia's country office, she is responsible for the ECD and ECE portfolios, including Zambia's flagship community-based ECD program, INSACA, which she's going to talk about. May we welcome Dr. Sepo. And on my extreme left, we have Ms. Sonia Gudinho. She is a senior education advisor at the EU delegation to Zambia and COMESA. Sonia Gudinho is a holder of a Master of Arts in European Law and a Master of Arts in Public Law. She has been working for the European Union since 2009 and has occupied different positions both at the EU headquarters in Brussels and in EU delegations like Timor-Leste and Namibia. Always working in her education sector and early childhood development and education. Prior to working with the EU, she worked in a private law firm in Portugal and in Brussels, Belgium. But her heart was and still is with the public sector and serving public interest, especially for young ones. In Portugal, she was part of the cabinet of the mayor of Lisbon, where she managed different portfolios covering the areas of education, youth, arts, and culture. May we welcome Ms. Gudinho. Having said that, I would like to just pose a question to the panelists. But before I pose one question which everyone is going to respond to, I would just like to provide the context to this first session. Access to comprehensive early childhood development ECD services remain limited in Zambia, especially for children in rural and marginalized communities where disparities in health, nutrition, and early learning opportunities persist. Many families face obstacles such as poverty, limited parental awareness, and cultural factors that hinder children's participation in quality early childhood development programs, impacting their cognitive, physical, and emotional growth. I think we did hear from the earlier speeches how important it is to invest in children so that when they grow, they contribute to the community. Strengthening ECD in Zambia requires not only effective policy and sustainable investment, but also strong partnerships between government, civil society, academia, communities, and the private sector to create an enabling environment for every child's development. Hence, us having a variety of panelists so that we can get a view from these departments. Now, my question to all of you is, at the moment, I would like to begin with a general question to all of you. Why is early childhood development critical for Zambia's future? Why is early childhood development critical for Zambia's future? Starting with you, Professor Hapunda.
Thank you very much. I'm not so sure it's not loud. Is it? No? Thank you very much. I think that there are several reasons why ECD is very important for Zambia's future. First, beginning with the role it plays for human capital development, and I think that during the opening ceremony, that's one of the things that was highly emphasized. For me, I think that our resources right now as a country, it's not copper, but it's actually humans. And human beings are the ones that are going to drive the engines of this country, and we need to invest in humans. But what that means is that we need to have a head start for our children. If our children are disadvantaged, then we are not going to move towards that trajectory.
Thank you very much. So a head start for children is... You can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for that question. I think that we've heard the message several times repeated across the various speakers. An investment in Zambia's future is an investment in our children, right? Every child in Zambia has the potential to enable the economy, enable the political situation, enable the social sector to advance, right? Every child. We don't get born as adults, right? We come from the early years. And that foundation that is set early in life is really critical for ensuring that children can grow up into the adults that will contribute to society. So that investment, we know, if you do it early, it actually costs less to deal with the ills of society, to deal with the gaps that we're talking about in terms of poverty, in terms of deprivations. So it's a really, that message, there's no, you can't underestimate the power of investing in young people, because really it is the foundation for the country.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edith. I think for me the short answer is because children are the future. And from my perspective, I'm coming from what we call an old continent region of the world, where we are decreasing in terms of number of children. And so what I see here is you're still having a very big growing population, so lots of children. But what I also see is many of them, especially in the most remote areas, face many challenges. So these children, as Zoe was saying, they're already at a disadvantaged position. So early childhood development, for me, is a really powerful tool for any country, and specifically for Zambia, to allow us to correct those inequalities and really be able to provide children with a strong foundation so they can reach their optimal development. And that is not only beneficial for them as individuals, but again, there's a major impact in all society. So I think that's why investing in children, it's also cheaper when we start when they're younger, because their needs are lesser than when we try to correct the vices. So it's not only a cheaper investment, but it's one that has higher returns. So I think both science, both research, both policymakers, everyone agrees on that. So I think the challenge is now, how do we do it in practice? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. I get back to you, Dr. Hapunda. And looking at your CV, we see that you are a professor of pediatric and developmental psychology at the University of Zambia, with research interests in early childhood development. You also have an extensive publication record with numerous works on child and adolescent development research. So my question to you is, could you kindly tell us what research does, or what research reveals about the long-term impact of early childhood interventions? And as you speak to that, you can also just relate it to Zambia's human capital development, like you mentioned in your earlier statement.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think it's a complex question, and it has so many dimensions to it. but I'll try to break it down into 6 areas, and riding on the seminal work for Heckman, who I think most of us already know. Garcia and Brito have done quite a lot of studies that look at the prediction of investing in early childhood development. And I'll begin with education, which I think has already been mentioned by the area speakers when we just opened this panel discussion. Number one is that investing in ECD prepares children for school. I think that there's a lot of evidence on school readiness and what that does, and so I'm not going to labor on that. But in addition to preparing children for school, it makes the school journey very smooth and enjoyable for them. If you've ever dropped a kid, ECD child for the first time, you know what happens. But what ECD does develops a foundation to make the whole education process also enjoyable. But the odds also for attaining higher education is higher when we invest in ECD. So that is one area that I would say that ECD has an impact on education. So the odds that someone will obtain better education, whether at high school or university, the odds are much higher compared to someone who hasn't gone for pass-through ECD interventions. The other we'll talk about is employability and income. We have seen that the odds also for those that have gone through ECD intervention to get employed is much higher. In fact, their income is predicted to be at least 25% higher than those that have not gone through ECD. And for me, that is a case for investment, because the trickle-down effect of such increase in income has a lot in terms of reducing intergenerational poverty that I think the previous speakers mentioned earlier. So also, that is another important area to talk about, which is employability and income. I can talk about health. In terms of health, we see impact there in the sense that when young children go through ECD intervention, particularly nutrition and good health services, it reduces the odds for them to acquire chronic illnesses later in life. And in particular, heart diseases reduce. What that means in terms of the implication for the countries is high. Now, tying it to the second part of your question, the implications are very high in the sense that, first of all, we've got a healthy, productive citizenry, but also it means that we are reducing on the expenditure that would go towards health expenditure. You know, now non-communicable diseases are taking up a lot of resources. So for me, that is another case where we see impact. I would also talk about investment, return on investment. So ECD is actually one of the sectors with the highest return on investment. The area speakers did allude to 4%. Actually, there are studies that show between 6 to, I think, 17% return on investment per dollar. And for me, that is good return on investment. And I think that we have a very big investment case to make here in terms of where do you want to see your return on investment. So the spillover effect is high based on that. But I think for me, it's also a leverage, particularly in the situation where we are on debt. Given that ECD has the highest return on investment, in a situation where we are with high debt, what does that mean in terms of investing, where we can actually reap something, but we can also leverage it for debt negotiation? I think it's ECD, because we can see the return. In fact, I think if you look at the internal rate of investment is between 8 to 18%, which for me I think is extremely good. The last one that I want to touch on is investment, immediate outcomes in investing in local economies and women empowerment. ECD for a long time has been a private sector led initiative. If you look at Zambia, I think the government just came in with this annexing just in the recent years. What that means is that ECD has often been driven by the private sector, and it's actually an area where we can make money as a private sector. But more importantly for me is that it is the highest in terms of employing women because of the care sector, early learning opportunities that they create. So it also provides that opportunity in terms of job creation and women empowerment. A study that was done in 2021 by Dano and others, it shows that for every woman that is employed in the care sector within ECD, 10 more women who otherwise would have been at home taking care of children are also given an opportunity to engage in productive activities. And for me, that is huge. One of the things that we are now concerned about is how are we going to adapt in this new era of AI. The first 3 years, children's development, particularly when it comes to social-emotional skills, is extremely important. The neural pathway is actually strengthened in terms of strengthening their adaptability, resilience, emotional skills. These are skills that we believe will be very essential, particularly in the era of AI. But more importantly, they are important for adaptability now. I think I'll end here.
Thank you very much for that explanation. So we see that in early childhood development, when we invest in it, it prepares children for school and the journey becomes smooth. I would like to encourage all of us to just take note. If you have any questions or clarifications to make, to just take note of that. We are going to give you an opportunity at the end of this session to just ask and get clarifications. Thank you so much, Dr. Hapunda. Dr. Zewelanji Sepo, I come to you now, and I want you to just explain to us in your capacity as the ECD specialist at UNICEF Zambia. We understand, or we have seen that UNICEF, together with the World Health Organization and the World Bank, in collaboration with the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn and Child Health, as well as the Early Childhood Development Action Network, launched what is known as the Nurturing Care Framework for ECD in May 2018. Could you kindly tell us what is nurturing care and what is the nurturing care framework for ECD? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Edith. So in a very simple way, the Nurturing Care Framework is a roadmap for action. It builds on the science that people have been referencing about what we can do to ensure that children develop to their full potential. It tells us how we can optimize environments to make sure that that early learning experience for young people enables them to develop to their best, right? Now, if you think about what it means to create an enabling environment, a child sits at the center of that, right? And a child sits in a family. So part of the Nurturing Care Framework is how do you ensure that the family is able to provide the necessary care to ensure that that child develops well. That family sits in a community, right? So you can't end at the family. You have to extend to environments that extend outward. So the community then sits in a society, the society sits in a nation. So when you talk about creating an enabling environment, a roadmap for creating an enabling environment, you have to address every level of that environment. So it's all the way from interventions where you are supporting caregivers in the kinds of things that they do with their children and the kinds of provisions that they enable in their households, all the way up to a nation setting a policy, and a policy that says in order to meet that child's needs, you have to address multiple sectors. It has to be multi-sectoral. You have to pay attention to health. You have to pay attention to education. You have to pay attention to social welfare. Right? So this framework really is about creating the right enabling environment, all the way from the household up to the policy environment. And it goes further to tell us a little bit about what does it mean to create an optimal environment for a child. And what it specifies is that there are 5 very important areas that you need to address to make sure that children are developing well. One is good health, right? Nobody can argue that you have to be healthy to develop well. The second one is adequate nutrition. So people were referencing statistics around stunting. Stunting is heavily dependent on the kind of nutrition that children get. The third is responsive caregiving. And this is really where the term nurturing care comes from, right? So responsive caregiving is about how caregivers are meeting the needs of children, or meeting the needs of their children, right? It's about responding, being responsive. It's not just, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. It's that you recognize what your child needs and you provide the kind of support and the kind of parenting, positive parenting, that enables your child to develop socio-emotionally well, but also triggers cognitive development, right? We've been talking a lot about brain development and how important it is to have those early years build the brain capacity that's going to carry children through life. The fourth area is safety and security, and this means many things. So safety and security can just mean that a child is not subject to violence, a child is not subject to abuse, but it also means a child's birth needs to be registered so that they can be counted, so that people know how many children and what services are required in order to meet the needs of Zambian children, right? Safety and security also means access to safe and clean water, right? So you heard it referencing around the construction of ECD facilities that they must also provide access to clean and safe water. We know that safe and clean water has implications for health outcomes. It has implications for nutrition outcomes. So this is that fourth dimension. The fifth dimension is the opportunities for early learning. So in Zambia we talk about ECE, right? So early childhood education. This is the idea that before a child enters formal schooling in primary school, they need to have been exposed to something that is stimulating their minds. They need to have an opportunity to gain those foundational learning skills. They need to know a little bit, those pre-literacy. Before you can read, what do you need to be able to do? You need to recognize letters, for example. Before you can do multiplication, you have to be able to count, right? You have to be able to recognize numbers. So ECE is about that. And we know from the science that a play-based approach is really critical to enabling children to transition from how they learn at home to how they learn in more formal contexts. So these conditions for optimal development, these 5 areas, are specified within the nurturing care framework. So what that means when I say it's a roadmap for action for a government, you know immediately that if you're going to set a policy, it can't just be a health policy, right? It has to be a policy that addresses all these sectors. It has to support the development of environments, the development of interventions that address every sector. So this is it's an important framework, and I always feel so much pride to be able to say that the nurturing care framework came out in 2018, and Zambia was one of the first countries to adopt it, right? So what it means is that we already have for us to work with a roadmap for action. And WHO also, as part of this establishment of this framework, also gives us some guiding principles about how countries can advance the nurturing care framework. So they tell us that we need to support nurturing care that is family-centered. We need to have a whole society approach. A child is not just, we have a proverb about it, right? It takes a village. But in this framework, it takes more than just a village. It takes a society. It takes a whole nation. So it's a whole society approach, a whole government approach, all the way from at the bottom, at district level, all the way up to our president, right? So we've talked a lot about, you might have heard that the president is the champion for foundational learning. Foundational learning is a key component of early childhood development. It sits within that education sector. So everybody from the top all the way down to the ward, people working at the ward level have to be part of this agenda in order for it to work. The other principle is that no child should be left behind, right? There's not a single child that should be left behind. And this is a key principle even in UNICEF. We stand behind this, right? You can't say, okay, we'll just access the young people in the urban areas who are easy to reach. No, we have to reach even the child all the way in Chiengi, in a very remote place. We also are not going to distinguish between children and say, no, we are only going to pay attention to girls, not pay attention to boys, or we're going to ignore children or persons with disabilities. No, we need to reach every child. No child should be left behind. The other thing is that I think the last principle I'll just mention and then I'll close is to say that this framework is grounded in a focus on children's rights to survive, yes, but also to thrive, right? Children must be given an opportunity to thrive. So I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Yes, please. Thank you so very much, Dr. Seppel. And thank you for giving us the roadmap to developing the right of an enabling environment so that the children have a smooth transition from home to ECE and the rest of their lives, and for the multi-sectoral kind of approach that needs to be seen, to be implemented from home to the school, to education, to health, and all the line ministries that require, as well as policies that are in line with enabling, with the right enabling environment for the children. Thank you so very much. Now I turn to you, Ms. Sonia Godinho, and I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Yes. And as lead of the EU delegation to Zambia, you work for the EU delegation to Zambia, but you have occupied different positions both at the EU headquarters in Brussels and in other EU delegations, with a focus on early childhood development and education. Quite recently, Zambia has received funding for early childhood development and adolescent programming through what is known as the Equal Chances for Human Development program. Now, we would like to find out from you, EU, when you look at EU, why do you consider early childhood development such a worthwhile investment?
Thank you, Edith, for that question. I think the short answer is because the cost of not investing in early childhood development, it's very high. It's high for the child, it's high for the family of that child, it's high for the country, and it is actually high for the world globally. And actually, early childhood education and care is also a priority in Europe. As you know, my organization, the European Union, it's an organization composed by 27 member states, European countries. And some of the competences, the sovereign powers of those countries, they have been given to the European Union. Examples of that is trade and also the policy, the monetary policy. So we have the same currency. We use the same euro currency. But education and early childhood education and care, it's how we define ECD in Europe, remains with each of the member states. But those member states together, they have agreed that early childhood development is a high priority in their agendas. And that also makes that the EU, as a partner, can support the different 27 European countries on cooperating around early childhood education and care. So what we do normally, we collect data, we collect different examples of early childhood education and care programs, And sometimes we present that information, and actually you know how it works. When we see our country in the ranking, we always tend to want to do better because we want to look better across the country. So it works well in terms of incentivizing countries to improve the programs that they have. Another of the things that the EU does is promoting exchanges. So we have ECD teachers that can go to different countries and learn from each other. I think this is quite important because even if each country is responsible for their ECD, we have also agreed on common targets. So together as the European Union, we have said that by 2030, we want to have children under 3 years old, 45% attending ECD. So that's mean almost half of the children. And at the moment we are at 38. So we are almost achieving the target. And then we have another target, which is children age 3 and more to attend ECD, 96%. And we are now at 93%. So this is just to show that it is a high priority within the EU countries, and then it's also a very important area of our cooperation with partner countries. And that also depends on the demand of the countries. And I'm very happy to see that for Zambia, this was one of the areas that Zambia told the EU, we want to partner and we want you to invest with us in ECD. And I think we know how important it is. I mean, we know that ECD is really where we set the foundation in terms of child development, and also in terms of learning outcomes, and also in terms of their health, as the professor already mentioned. And I think for me one of the important statements is to know that our brain develops 90% by the age of 5. So that means that children until they're 5, they're like sponges. Everything that happens around them, whatever they are, within the family, if they are at the ECD center, this is what they're really learning and ingraining. The reason why in Europe we say early childhood education and care is because we believe education starts at 0. It really starts already when the mother is pregnant. The type of food the mother eats, the type of sounds around them, if they're not violent sounds, already impacts on how that child develops. So I think that really makes us a case to invest in children. And I think for me, again, it's not just the individual benefits of a child in terms of, we know also for a fact in all our assessments that children that have attended more than 1 year of ECD, they always perform better on their exams in language and mathematics. And that also means that the risk of dropping out of school is much lower. So again, from here you have societal impact. Why? Because you have savings in the education sector. There's less repetition levels, there's less dropout. You can use that money to invest in other aspects. And again, in health sector, right? You have children that get less sick, so you can again save those costings. And I also know in terms of problems with justice, they really lower once children have been into ECD programs. So there's really multiple benefits in terms of investing in ECD. There's one which I think is quite important, which is also allowing caregivers, both the mother and the father, to be able to go and work. Because if there are good quality ECD centers or programs where they can leave their children and trust that their children are being really provided a nurturing care framework, that also improves the productivity of a country. So that's why, and the last point I would like to make is again the issue of inequality. Investing in ECD is really one of the best tools to fight inequalities, because if a child is born already in a disadvantaged context because of poverty, because of violence, the ECD, and I really would like to outline quality ECD, because sometimes it's better to invest less but good than having ECD programs which have not good quality. Because what it does is it will help fill the gaps of that child, specifically on social emotional learning. I think we all agree that a child that is facing problems of violence, of poverty, already needs to have much more resilience than any other child that has a better environment. So ECD can really help those child in need to build that social emotional skills. So I think I'll stop there, just mentioning that quite important when we speak about investment in ECD is really focus on quality, and I think we can talk a bit more what it means quality ECD.
Thank you very much for that response. And we've seen from the presentation the importance of early childhood development. And like we have heard from the last speaker, it is important for stimulation to start early. As Dr. Sepo mentioned, early learning, which Ms. Godinho has just indicated that it starts from the time a child is still in the womb. So early learning starts very early for the brain to develop, and the stimulation is critical. And we've seen the importance of data, because she's talking about where a country is. Without data, then it becomes very difficult for you to know where the country is. Thank you so very much for that presentation. So now I would like to open up the floor to the audience. If you have any questions or something to say from what has been discussed.
Thank you very much, Moderator. Engineer Christopher Kangombe, Member of Parliament for Isa constituency in Kitwe. Allow me first of all to recognize my colleagues, the members of Parliament that have joined us this very important, very important, very thank you very much once again. I was paying attention to the three speakers this morning, and I wanted to just make one quick comment and then ask a question. I think from the past engagements we've had on ECD, I think the focus has been how do we shift the focus from just focusing on education but looking at it holistically. Okay? And I think that is the conversation today, that we now put all these theories, all these conversations we've had into practice. And I think for us as parliamentarians, we have a duty, first of all, to ensure that when time comes to pass the national budget, obviously we have to put in quite a lot of money. But the biggest challenge we face in terms of getting the right amount of money into this space is that we have these competing needs. So I'm coming from another engagement where we are discussing water, sanitation, and how we ensure that mothers deliver in a very clean environment. So that space needs money. So in that space, everyone is saying, let's put more money into water and sanitation. Here where we are, which is an equally important space, we are saying, let's not just focus on the education aspect. Let's look at ECD from a perspective of holistically developing a child before they go into grade 1, before they go into grade 2. Because some of us who did our primary school in government schools, we started at grade 1. We didn't have the basics. So we just had to find a way to step up, and here we are today. But we can't assume that everyone will manage. So my submission therefore is that at the highest level of the ministry, we have the Ministry of Education, we have the Ministry of Community Development, we've got the Ministry of Health, and we've got the Ministry of Finance. These ministries become key in this conversation. And I wish that this panel, whenever we're having these very important conversations, let's always ask the Ministry of Community, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, and Finance, especially Finance. And I want to end by stating that at Parliament now we are doing what is called sector budget analysis. Now the problem we've had under sector budget analysis is that despite this sector saying we need more money in this line, if they tell you your budget under health is 10 billion, unfortunately you can't ask for more money. because each ministry is given a ceiling. And that is why we need Ministry of Finance whenever we're having these conversations. Maybe they are here, I've just joined you guys. So I hope that the aspect of ceilings when we are approving the budget could be attended to, because really there's a compelling need for us to put more money into ECD as opposed to waiting for the goodwill from the private sector. I think in many cases we've always relied on what can Barloworld give us, what can MTN give us extra, but we have a duty as well to allocate more money. And for me, I always make these commitments, and I think, speaking on behalf of my colleagues, where we need to provide more resources, please tell us as experts, here, can you move this money to this line, and we'll be able to provide those resources. I thought I could make those few comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Kangombe. And those are very critical submissions that you have made, and I'm sure we have taken note of them. Thank you very much. Can we have...
Can I comment?
Maybe we have two more.
Okay.
Two more, and then we can comment. Okay.
Thank you so much. I'm Lamek Hamwata, Member of Parliament for Pemba Conference, and I would say I'm a champion. I'm in a committee of a parliamentary committee on children. Now, when you talk of ECD, early childhood development, which you said it begins in the womb, and of course, when the child is born, that development continues. Now I have a bit of some headache. I look at our women who leave these children when they are born with maids, and in most cases you leave your children with people probably who ended in grade 9, failed grade 7, with no basic understanding how to develop this child. So you have this situation that needs to be taken care. I really wonder how can we improve the situation so that when you leave a child, a baby, it should be left with a person who have this basic understanding. Can we start thinking outside the box? Having professional maids who understand the basic development of this child from the womb up to the time this child goes to is it nursery school. Because if this stage is missed, this is where now you find a child of a very educated, well-to-do person is in the street taking some drugs. So you technocrats, I think this is something we need to seriously start discussing to see how best we can improve the situation. It's just a comment and just to provoke your thinking how best we can improve the situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. The last one for this, maybe we take... Okay. So after these three will come this side, since this side has been taken care of.
Thank you so much. George Kasabila Kandafula, Member of Parliament, Serenje. I think our three colleagues have laid the foundation. All I can say is like, a strong foundation. Even if pressures come, I think, it will withstand. Because it's like we have been doing things the other way around. Just like my counterpart talked about these water issues, healthy and the rest. Because if we had the first know our knowledge in the first place, all these things probably could have handled them. But just going to what from the European, I think, delegation, I think to some extent it's the laws that we have in Zambia. Because, for example, she talked about, that noisy and the rest. But you will find that our pregnant mothers actually are busy in the bar dancing. So meaning even the child will come out dancing. I think you've gotten my point. So all we can say probably, it's a variety of things that we need to do. We have to lay a better foundation so that even when we are giving out money to the ECD programs, I think it's something that won't be like putting in an ocean. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Honorable, is it Kanjama, MP? Oh, sorry, Kanyama. Honorable Monty. Yes, he has a question.
Thank you, thank you so much. Indeed, I'm most humbled to be part of this. Looking at where I'm coming from, you see, Kanyama is where everything happens, everything takes place. The larger the population, the more challenges that the environment has. Like my colleague has put it across, over there, for those who don't know me, my name is Monty Chinkuli. That Karabash, for your sake. Yes. Like my colleague has put it, you look now, I want to learn a story of a pig. You get a pig, wash it, clean it nicely, then release it. What happens? It goes back into and are you achieving that which needs to be achieved? I want to look at the environment through which we are trying to bring this issue on board. Here's an environment which is not friendly to the community. You teach a child or take care of a child, but when that child comes off the hands of the caregivers, where does that child go? Into an environment where there are no play parks for a child. All what is there is just something that will intoxicate that child's mind, like my colleague has put it, where you find this mother, you're trying to educate this mother, you're trying to advise this mother. 7 hours, the mother is doing dombolo in the community. So what do you expect of the outcome? The outcome may be worse. So we have a situation where these bars that we have, as early as 05, they are open up to some 24/7 in the community. So we need to look at the environment first, as we are trying to come up with laws that are going to help these mothers bring out these children. Indeed, in an environment like where we are in Zambia, where laws are taking precedence, we're looking at anything that needs to be done should be backed by a piece of law. So now, if we don't have these laws, whatever good ideas that we may bring across, whatever environment that we are going to put across, I think it will just be in rhetoric and not something that will help us. So I just thought I make mention that let us look at all aspects that will create that environment where a child will be able to live in that good environment. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chinkuli, MP. So we'll get one more before the panelists respond.
Hello. Let me stand up. My name is Given Daka. I'm from the Zambia ECD network, but also from the Africa Early Childhood Network. I just want to build on the point that was raised earlier by the honorable member there regarding children in the earlier years and what we need to do to ensure that children are safeguarded in terms of wherever they are receiving their child care. think what I would like to say is that we need to take on a systems approach. We need to be comprehensive in the way we look at early childhood development in Zambia. I know that there has been, of course, and rightly so, a bias towards early childhood education, but that is okay because we do need to prepare children for school. However, when you look at the development continuum, and we do have Professor Hapunda there, a psychologist who would be able to attest that children, there is a developmental continuum from birth, and therefore, as we plan and as we look at early childhood development, I would say that we need to have a more holistic approach. What do children need from the time they are born? What kind of services do they need? And we have to look at, to put children at the center of our planning and of our budget in the sectors, but within a holistic framework of early childhood development. So I'm glad to hear that there's progress with the early childhood development policies. So for me, I think the issue of childcare is an emerging issue. It's an emerging issue globally, it's an emerging issue regionally, and it also should be an emerging issue here in Zambia. I believe that, I think it was Professor Hapunda and our colleague from the EU who made reference to the fact that this is linked to women's economic empowerment. There is a high cost of childcare services. To go and find a good service, childcare service, you have to pay. A lot of families from the who are more vulnerable families are unable to provide childcare, and this is where we find that children are being raised in the context that the honourable member made there, that under care of caregivers who even maybe pose a risk to children's development. So let's look at all these issues, and the majority of children below 10 years are receiving care in all sorts of settings. There is no policy, there is no regulation, no one really oversees what happens to these children in the different contexts. How many times do we see children in the markets running around because their mothers have to go and earn a living in the market? So I just wanted to end, Edith is already signaling to me, just to end by saying this is a fantastic forum that we are here, but I would like to urge that as we progress ECD in Zambia, we take on a holistic approach and look at children holistically. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that fourth submission. And we would like to thank the members of parliament from the Parliamentary Caucus on Children for the submissions that they have made. I'll allow the panelists 1 minute each, please, to respond so that we can move on to the next question.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
Can I go? Okay. Let me try to keep it to 1 minute. So I just want to acknowledge and really appreciate our members of parliament for raising the issue about the importance of policy to this whole endeavor, right? And I want to say that the ECD policy, the multi-sectoral ECD policy that has been referenced, that is upcoming, is fundamentally multi-sectoral. And it involved in its development 5 key line ministries actually, which include health, education, MCDSS, Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, and Ministry of Finance. So these 5 ministries all weighed into what should constitute this policy. So it is multi-sectoral in its development and it's multi-sectoral in its intention. So it helps address this issue about how we holistically address early childhood development. The second part that I want to emphasize on the same is that the policy also establishes how you coordinate across sectors. Right? This is very important. Zambia is not lacking in ECD-related policies, but how these policies relate to each other across sectors. This multi-sectoral policy helps establish that? How does Ministry of Education work with Ministry of Health? How does MCDSS come in? How does local government come in? It helps establish a structure for how you work across sectors. The last point I'll make is that the first Honourable Member of Parliament mentioned that they're really concerned with budget and budget allocations. Right now it's quite difficult to assess or track how much money is going to ECD. ECE is easy because there's a budget line in the Yellow Book, right? So we can talk about how much has been invested in ECE, early childhood education, less so across the other sectors. But that's why a policy is important. A policy allows you to allocate budget lines and to ensure that each sector is allocating the right amount of money and that it is going towards the critical things that need to be part of a child's package. Last thing that the policy does is it establishes what an essential package for ECD looks like. It says you need to deal with the WASH component, you need to deal with the health component. It says this is a minimum package. Every child should have access to quality health care. Every child should have access to early childhood education experiences. It also says that parenting supports are critical in this ECD conversation. Parenting supports include the provision or that you should have universal child care. Everybody should have access to high quality child care. So this, just to emphasize the importance of this policy and passing this policy, it really helps structure how we move forward as a country.
Thank you very much. I think Dr. Sepo has actually responded on behalf of the other two panelists. Thank you so much. So we come to the end of the first panel discussion of From Policy to Practice. How can Parliament drive transformative change for early childhood development in Zambia? Can we give a round of applause to the three panelists? So we are going to take a 5-minute break, and after the break we come back for the last part of the panel discussion. And if, just in case you have more questions for them, they can come in after the second panel. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. You are still watching Parliament Television. We are coming to you live in the amphitheater at Parliament main building, in which we have an important event with, that is being hosted by UNICEF and the National Assembly of Zambia with support from the European Union. And so we just had the first segment of the panel discussion, an early childhood development panel discussion under the theme From Policy to Practice, how can Parliament bring transformative change in the early childhood development in Zambia. And so I'd like to thank all our panelists for that first round of insights. That was a very rich start to the conversation, and I'm sure that many of us are already reflecting on the points that have been raised, from the importance of early investment in our children to the need for stronger coordination among our stakeholders. And so in our first segment for today's panel discussion, we had Dr. Given Hampunda, Associate Professor, Head of Department of Psychology, University of Zambia. We also had Dr. Zoelanji Sepo, who is an early childhood development specialist, UNICEF Zambia. And on our panel for the first segment of the panel discussion, we had Ms. Sonia Godinho, who is a Senior Education Policy and Program Officer, European Union Delegation to Zambia and COMESA. And so we had our first segment for the early childhood development panel discussion. And in the first segment, we did have 3 panelists. And we are standing by to have the second segment of the Early Childhood Development panel discussion. And the first segment has given us a solid foundation, and it's clear that the issues around early childhood development touch every part of our communities, from health and nutrition to education, protection, and family support. And so we are just getting started, as we already had the first segment of the panel discussion under the theme From Policy to Practice. How can Parliament bring about transformative change in Zambia? And in the first segment of the Early Childhood Development panel discussion, on the panelist, we had 3 panelists, and we are yet to have another set of panelists, 3 set of panelists that will be in the second segment of the early childhood panel discussion. And so anytime from now we should have the second segment of the early childhood development panel discussion. In case this is when you're just tuning into Parliament television, we are coming to you live in the amphitheater at Parliament buildings. Earlier on, we did have the official opening of the early childhood development panel discussion, and we did have remarks from different stakeholders, and I would like to thank you so much for still being with us on Parliament television as we continue bringing Parliament closer to you. And as I earlier mentioned, the first segment of the panel discussion has already taken place, and we did have 3 panelists for the first segment, and we are yet to have another 3 panelists for the second segment of the panel discussion. And I'm honored to be joined by Pemba Member of Parliament, Mr. Lamek Hamwata, who is here just to share with us in regards to this important event that is being hosted by UNICEF and National Assembly of Zambia with support from the European Union. Honorable Member of Parliament for Pemba, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us on Parliament television.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon. I'm so happy to be here to discuss the issue to do with early childhood development.
All right, Honorable, where do you see the biggest gaps in parliamentary oversight when it comes to the implementation of the early childhood development in Zambia?
The gap I'm seeing is the issue of the budget line that we really need. Of course, I'm aware that the early childhood education is covered, but when you talk of early childhood development, you are talking of a child who is still in the womb. I think these are some of the areas we seriously need to start looking at.
All right, as Pemba Member of Parliament, how do you react to today's theme, From Policy to Practice? How can Parliament bring transformative change in the early childhood development in Zambia?
First, to start with, as a Member of Parliament, we are champions. I think we are in the right place to actually educate the community, especially that we are more interactive with the community. They need to understand what early childhood means to the lives of unborn baby. So we are well placed, in short.
All right, so thank you so much for reacting to today's theme. That was Pemba Member of Parliament, Mr. Lamek Hamwata, just sharing with us some remarks in regards to this important event.
Welcome back to the second issue. And on my immediate left, we have Ms. Cleopatra Muma, who is the Executive Director for Zambia Open Community Schools, ZOCS. Ms. Cleopatra Muma is the Executive Director for Zambia Open Community Schools, a leading local organization advancing access to quality education for vulnerable and marginalized children in Zambia. Through visionary leadership, extensive experience in education, policy, and community development, Cleopatra has championed initiatives that strengthen community-based education with early childhood learning as a foundation for lifelong learning. Cleopatra is passionate about inclusive education and building sustainable partnerships that ensure every child enjoys their rights, grows and thrives from their earliest years. Let's welcome Ms. Cleopatra Moma. Thank you. In the middle, we have Mr. Vaiko Silavwe, who is the Chief IMCI Officer at the Ministry of Health. Mr. Vaiko Silavwe works with the Ministry of Health headquarters as Chief IMCI Officer, Directorate of Public Health under Child Health and Nutrition Unit, and he's held this position since 2008. He is the focal point person for early childhood development in the Ministry of Health since 2009. VICO coordinates integrated management of newborns and childhood illness, IMNCI, early childhood development, and other related child health programs since 2008 in order to mitigate impact of child morbidity, mortality, and promote child healthy growth and development in the Ministry of Health in Zambia. Let's welcome Mr. Vaiko Silavwe. And at the far end, we have the Honorable Joseph Musanje, MP, who is also the chairman of the Parliamentary Caucus on Children at the National Assembly of Zambia. Honorable Dr. Joseph S. Musanje is Member of Parliament for Mbavala constituency in Choma. He is Portfolio Committee Chairman for Health, Community Development and Social Services, and sits on the Legal, Human Rights and Governance Committee. Honorable Musanje is Chairman for the Parliamentary Caucus on Children and has achieved the enactment of the Children's Code Act and the signing of a pact with the House of Chiefs to create model bylaws to end child marriage. Honorable Musanje led development organizations for 25 years, among them SOS, Children's Villages, before becoming a Member of Parliament. May we welcome Honorable Joseph Musanje. Now, coming to you, Ms. Muma. You are Executive Director for ZOX, and you are part of the civil society. You are well acquainted with the unique and critical role that civil society organizations play in supporting and enhancing ECD service delivery alongside government partners. In 3 minutes, can you please tell us what the role of CSOs is in terms of bringing gaps in ECD service delivery? So you just need to tell us, how do CSOs complement government efforts? In 3 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. It's always interesting to be given time to speak about what you love, what you're so passionate about. And I will endeavor to speak within the time that's been allocated to me. Civil society organizations are critical to Zambia's development. And beyond the conversation we are having here, put it broadly for development, they are actually development partners. When it comes to the contribution of civil society in early childhood development, I think it's massive. Firstly, civil society are a critical stakeholder in terms of providing accountability to government. The experience and the evidence that civil society has, right from the household, right in the community, in the heart of our country, is generated by civil society to bring out advocates that is needed, the data that is needed for the advocates that we need, to be able to really see the gaps in policy implementation. I think the panelists earlier did refer to issues of policy, and we do not lack good policies in this country. We have very good policies, but we do have gaps in terms of implementation. And I think that's one critical role that civil society brings, to the table, bringing out the gaps that are there and what could be done about that. Other than that, civil society is critical in ensuring that, they contribute to financing. Civil society does mobilize resources, to finance, some of the interventions around ECD in the country, but most importantly, they mobilize the community. If we talk about sustainable interventions, we need to have the community at the center of everything that we do. And that's the strength that civil society brings, mobilizing the communities. Remember, the capability of the community is where development for the country lies. As development partners, we thrive on the goodwill of the communities to be able to do anything that we want done. And when it comes to ECD, the community is a very important stakeholder, and we cannot do anything without them. If we have to reach a household, we need to convince the whole community about why ECD is important. And that involves a traditional leadership, a very critical stakeholder as well. We cannot go to work in a community without involving the traditional leaders. And with their blessing, the community actually shows all of us in civil society that they're capable of responding to their needs. We have seen communities finance, ECD centers, construction of ECD centers themselves using community resources, and then that's a big resource. That is financing, and we need to monetize this. Most of the times when you talk about community contribution, we don't look at the locally contributed resources. We look at the money, but there are so many other resources that communities bring to the core and contribute. And I think I want to challenge all of us in civil society as well, together with other stakeholders. I think it's high time we monetize the contribution of the community because it's important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that submission. And we've seen that the civil society is critical when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to data, and we've heard that the community is what we are here for, because when we talk about children, we are talking about the children coming from the community. So we have to ensure that we are engaging the community in everything that we do. Thank you so much. I'm coming to you, Mr. Silavwe. You work for the Ministry of Health and coordinating the integrated management of newborns and childhood illness, early childhood development, and other related child health programs since 2008. Again, I'll give you 3 minutes as well to just tell us what you would say are the most critical gaps in Zambia's ECD service delivery, and how can multi-sectoral collaboration address them? Because we've heard earlier on people are talking about not working in silos, but we need to work as coordination has to be there. We have to work as a multi-sectoral sector. So what does that exactly mean?
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. I think we are given very, very little time, but let me just quickly mention the critical gaps in Zambia with regard to ECD service delivery. The first one, I think we are already aware, is another bit of the policy, the ECD multi-sectoral policy, and sooner than later it will be a thing of the past, and that will be a big, big, big milestone achievement for the country. The other one is non-availability of the formally endorsed high-level supervisory body that should oversee line ministry's implementation of ECD in the country. You are aware that no one ministry can supervise or hold accountable another ministry. So we are looking forward to that as the policy comes in place, so that then a high-level supervisory body is established. The other one, I think we've already heard, the inadequate allocation of resources in all the line ministries for ECD, and therefore the coverage of ECD implementing districts is still very low. We are still at 42%, but only 49 districts out of 116 are implementing ECD. So those children in the 67 districts are left out, and there's no equity of access in terms of giving them the opportunity to develop and attain their full potential. The other gap is inadequate awareness of the importance of ECD by the general public, including some technocrats. We should know, as we have already heard from earlier presentation, that ECD starts with building a strong and firm foundation of the brain. And we've already heard that brain development, the neural pathway that the professor mentioned here, starts in pregnancy. And in the third trimester, the last 12 weeks of pregnancy, develops, those neural pathways develop at a very fast rate, 1,000 per second. And if we miss it there, then we are building a weak foundation. It's like the example of a society building in Cairo Road. It was so good, so nice, but somewhere the engineers missed the foundation and started cracking. And that's what should be concerning our children. You don't build a better foundation, no matter how they can be sweethearts when they are young, they will grow and turn up to be maybe people who regret. They become a thorn in the flesh of the nation, they become junkies, they become bad gelabos. So I wanted to mention that. So I think we need a multi-sectoral approach. People do not differentiate between ECD and ECE. Even technocrats. ECD is bigger because of the issue that I've just raised. So we need a multi-sectoral approach. It's not the Ministry of Health, it's not the Ministry of Education, it's not the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services. And I think the honorables and also the first panel discussed that we have about 5 or so land ministries which are responsible and need to work together, the multi-sectoral team, together with also the stakeholders, so to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Silabwe. So he has tried to give us a tip on how we should avoid having junkies and bad gerables. Okay? So thank you so much for that. We have to take that seriously. Moving on to you, Honorable Joseph Musanja. I don't know whether I should also give you 3 minutes. This is your area, so please, maybe we'll give you 5 minutes since you are the chairperson. You may have other issues to talk about. As a member of parliament, sir, and chairman for the Parliamentary Caucus on Children, you played a pivotal role in the enactment of the Children's Code Act and in signing a pact with the House of Chiefs to create model bylaws to end child marriage, as we heard in your introduction. We would like to kindly request that you just explain to us, why should ECD be a legislative priority for Zambia? And how does this align with the national development strategies? Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you so much, and good to be back in a different capacity, but now not as Madam Speaker, but now as Honorable Musanje. Yeah, so thank you so much, Madam Mrs. Goma for that person, coordination role. Basically, I wish to, I think, answer that question by, first of all, recognizing the 8th National Development Plan for Zambia. We've got an 8th National Development Plan which has extracted what is in our Education Act to deliver education. And we have been enhanced by the free education policy of the UPND New Dawn government. And one of the things which His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema has said is that we must not end on providing free education, we must make free education into law. So there goes the challenge to us, legislators, to make sure that any childhood education does not remain out of this cake of the law for free education. We need to align and put our legal framework properly in terms of providing free and quality education. That includes early childhood education. And so when we listen to discussions like I think Bogdan mentioned earlier in the morning, that only 2.9% of the education budget is going to early childhood education. When we put the legal framework, then it protects the budgetary allocation, because sector budget analysis here follows these standards to say, okay, the law is saying 10% must go to early childhood education, and how much are we putting? We'll find that we are putting 2.9%. So we will definitely now put more money, and we'll start getting much more intrusion in terms of getting early childhood education to be aligned to the national development goals in line with the 8th National Development Plan and the Vision 2030 on making Zambia a modern economy by 2030. And we're almost there. So we need to take action now. Hence in the morning I said the free education and the early childhood education now, so that we can start getting these things going. Further on, we can also look at some of the other things that my colleagues have mentioned in terms of the input of civil society, as well as the aspects which Mr. Slavwe mentioned, which we need to take into consideration to make sure that we have that policy alignment. We also have the policy in place, because like I said, the legal and the policy framework need to be properly and fully aligned with the correct strategies and tactics that will deliver early childhood education. And so we remain committed, and as the PCC here, our job is to work with the civil society and government itself to deliver on these very important aspects in terms of making sure that we've got the right laws, we've got the correct oversight as we go around during our tours, and we put the money where it should be, and we represent our constituencies. That's why we are happy when we see honorable members of parliament present here, who I recognize, my colleagues, because they play an important role as they bring exactly what the people want to see and hear from us parliamentarians.
Thank you very much. A round of applause.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are going to now go to the audience and find out if there are any questions or comments, and that has to be done in a minute. Yeah? The questions should be very straightforward and just under 1 minute. And then for the panelists, just in case there was also something else you needed to say, you can respond to that through, as you respond to some of these questions. I saw a hand for a long time here. Okay, and then it comes here. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Angelina Shamilimo. Before I go to my question, I would like to say, as young people, we are ready to be part of the real change, not just observers in the room, but so my question is, in translating early childhood development policy into practice, how can Parliament facilitate collaboration between youth, community leaders, and policy makers to create sustainable solutions? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Did you get the question?
Thank you so much, and I'm glad. My question was for the previous panelists.
That's okay. You can still go ahead and ask, since
but
they are
then
still here.
I'll just do a comment. And I'm glad that the Honorable here has indicated the resonating they are having on policy and law enforcement and enactment. But then I want to just speak to say, in Zambia, our theme today is saying from policy to practice. we have a lot of policies, but we don't have a lot of practice. I can just give an example of way back in the 70s, and we are going to decentralization, how the local authorities had community development officers planted in almost every community, and they were talking to parenting issues, nutrition issues, and all those issues parents would love to know on child care. Is it possible that we can, as policymakers, bring this to practice side by side with decentralization, that we have a deliberate move to practically put these local authority officers, called community development officers, with background in child care, in background in early childhood development or whatever area, that can be promoting parenting education. Because children will not be waiting for infrastructure for them to develop right. But if parents have a know-how or an understanding on how they can support and promote child development, early stimulation for emergent literacy, numeracy, and expressive arts, that would be a very practical way of making ECD affordable at that level of our communities. So I just want to urge and request our policymakers to move from policy direction to policy practice, so that these in ministries can make this work very practically. Because I'm getting to understand that we are moving towards decentralization, and we have this CDF fund, and it doesn't have a component for ECD. Can it also be an area which you can speak to as policymakers, as you do your policy analysis, that you may have a component just to deal with early childhood development in that CDF allocation for parenting education within communities? Because knowledge is power. I heard one MP saying parents are employing grade 4s and children from the who have failed to take care of themselves to come and take care of their children, and they expect to get the same result because they are doctors where they work, and they expect their child to be stimulated right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We can't ignore the Honorable Member of Parliament for Kanyama.
Thank you so much, and I'm most humbled. I've got a few concerns. When you talk about early child marriage, I think under governance there is a ministry that is tasked to do that. When you talk about early child education, the Minister of Education is mandated to do that. And these other issues, there is a particular ministry that is mandated to handle those issues. Now, we have got CSOs that also specialize in these certain fields. Now, my question is, how well do these CSOs, NGOs, stakeholders collaborate with these line ministries that attend to these issues where they have their concern? So I just want to know how best you collaborate with this, because I believe the ministry has got its own funding, and these CSOs, NGOs, cooperating partners, they have also some component of some. How best do you get those resources, put them together, and fight that which needs to be fought for? I submit.
Thank you so much, Honorable. So maybe with those, we'll get to the panelists and request that you respond to those questions, starting with her, and then...
Thank you very much. I'll probably respond from the immediate what Honorable Member of Parliament for Kanyama stated around civil society aligning the mission to line ministries. Firstly, I just want to give a statement that early childhood education and early childhood development cannot wait for Zambia. It's actually an emergency. And because it's an emergency, all stakeholders need to rally together for a common good. And I think that's the alignment that we have as civil society. Depending on your area of expertise as a civil society organization, the entry point for the work that civil society does is to align with a ministry so that their mission and vision speaks to the development agenda at a broader level. So when it comes to our code, to how we have been working with government, it's actually identifying your niche and then being able to identify with the right ministry. I'll give you an example. I work for Zambia Open Community Schools, and our core business is education. Our focus is early childhood education, but we cannot ignore the benefits of ECD as a whole, and we cannot talk about education without really looking at the importance of the foundational levels. So what we do as civil society then is to supplement and complement the Ministry of Education in achieving their mission, but also to ensure that there is increased access, for example, for ECD in areas that are not served by government. And that's where the role of civil society comes in, is to fill up that gap. Government alone cannot do all the work that is required. And then we have different stakeholders, and this is the role that then civil society plays in and fills that gap. Our beautiful country is broad, and government is not everywhere. I'll give you one example, Honorable. The reason why community schools exist in this country is because there was a service delivery gap in education. And we needed, the barriers were growing, and we needed facilities that were as close to home as possible to navigate issues of, for example, distance. And even when you talk about early childhood development, we cannot talk about ECD without thinking of how appropriate is it going to be for these young learners to access such services. It means they need to be as close to home as possible, and hence civil society, through their own mobilization of resources and working together with government, they have made community-based ECD centers so that these children can have an opportunity. I think the previous speakers did allude to the fact that most of these interventions were initially driven by the private sector, meaning an ordinary Zambian child was being left behind. If they could not access a private facility, it meant they were going to be left behind forever, and they would not catch up with their friends that would have this opportunity. So that is the role of civil society. So also we bring to the table with government a conversation of these are the gaps, what can we do? And then government does coordinate, and we don't compete with government, we collaborate with government to ensure that the available resources are actually leveraged for the benefit of the child. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Silabo, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, let me just, I hope it is working. Are you able to get me? Just a quick one, just to respond to what one of the adolescent questioned, and I think the Honorable Member of Parliament will be able to respond. But I want to just also encourage you from the ministry point of view, and we recently, the global updates on what Dr. Sepo had earlier presented, the 5 domains of nurturing care. UNICEF and WHO have added the 6th domain now, which responds to the adolescents' health and their needs, which will soon integrate in our packaging for adolescent health services, as well as being implemented in the youth-friendly services. Is called realization of self-autonomy and resilience by the adolescents, because you move out of the families, you want to be alone, or not you want, but it's inevitable that at one time you have to go out, you go to higher learning institutions, you have to know that you have to stand by your own, and then how do you develop that sense of resiliency to certain risk factors and how you should now proceed with your own life. So that one is one of the packages that we're implementing as Ministry of Health. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Honorable, I don't know whether you have a last word.
Yeah, thank you so much. The experience from Mr. Hamilton here, I think I saw that in the early 80s when I was a kid, that we had the welfare centers. And those welfare centers were doing a tremendous job in terms of early childhood education, because all these places, I think the commonest we had was this one in Roma here, the one in Charleston there, Chileje, all those were doing these things. And I think as we redesign in terms of practice what you are talking about, as we redesign these models, we need to be thinking back to what worked and not throw away what worked, because definitely they did work, those welfare centers. And to our youth, in terms of how can Parliament translate this policy into action, basically by what Parliament has done now in this strategy, and thanks to yours truly, Madam Speaker, Lady Moti, is to take Parliament to the people. You know, this strategy now of Parliament, it has brought the people closer. Hence, these facilities are open now. We can have these discussions here. Previously, even when I was at university, to enter Parliament there at the gate was a total war. You know, you needed to justify yourself, write letters, explain who you are, and all that kind of thing. Then that's when you'll be allowed, and even when you were allowed in previously, you are led by security to only the point where you need to be, and then out you are taken out. But now Parliament is open to the public. We are hearing more from you, the citizens. We are listening more from you, the citizens. So that input from you, the citizens, means that we will participate in that shift from policy to practice a bit more.
Thank you so very much. And that was a very wonderful way of concluding this session. We would like to thank our panelists for being available, even the ones that were here earlier. They will be around just in case you still have something you want to find out from them, so that you can engage and get the responses that you need. And just to confirm, sir, that the welfare you're talking about was a good concept. And I think Lusaka City Council and Chongwe Municipal Council have actually come up with that concept, and they are starting to implement. And they have actually phrased it the Olofare. So it's back.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant.
So we would like to thank our panelists and the audience for this rich discussion. And I'm sure from the sponsors, they've seen that we needed more time. And we hope next time it will be 2 days instead of half a day. We've heard clear evidence that ECD is a national priority, practical steps for policy and financing, and the importance of collaboration across sectors, which has come out clearly that we can't work in silos. We need to work as a multi-sectoral team. Let's commit to turning these insights into action, because investing in our youngest citizens is investing in Zambia's future. And as we go out there, we are just asking and encouraging our members of parliament to champion ECD in parliament. And I must say, this PCC committee has really been there, and they are running with this. And we believe even after this, we are going to see something come out. We need to invite CSOs as well as the line ministries like we heard, and the academia, to continue evidence-based advocacy. And to the funders of this discussion, we would like to say thank you very much, and we would like to thank UNICEF for the technical support. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for still being with us on Parliament Television. That was
we've come to the end story revealing this at the end, but thank you. So her name is Edith.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for still being with us on Parliament Television. That was the second segment of today's early childhood panel discussion. And on the second segment, we did have Ms. Cleopatra Moma, Executive Director, Zambia Open Community School, Mr. Vaiko Silavwe, Chief IMCI, Officer Child Health Unit, Ministry of Health, and we also had Honorable Joseph Musanje, who is the chairperson of the Parliamentary Caucus on Children. And so this is where we come to the end of today's early childhood development panel discussion. Early in the morning, we did have the official opening of the event. We had remarks from National Assembly of Zambia Deputy Clerk Procedure, Mr. Stephen Kawembe, remarks by UNICEF Deputy Representative Operation, Mr. Henry Haikura. We also had remarks by European Union Team Leader for Social Sector and Governance, Mr. Bogdan Stefansky, and we had remarks by Mr. Sidney Mshanga, member of the Parliamentary Caucus on Children, and the last remarks came from the chairperson of the Parliamentary Caucus on Children, Mr. Joseph Musanje, MP, who delivered a speech on behalf of the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Right Honorable Madam Nelly B.K. Moti. And so I would like to thank everyone for being with us on Parliament Television. This is where we come to the end of the early childhood development panel discussion. My name is Matimba Mkua. On behalf of the entire production crew, keep watching Parliament Television.
Registration continues. The Electoral Commission of Zambia has extended the voter registration exercise for 15 days from Wednesday the 12th of November 2025 to Wednesday the 26th of November 2025. This is to capture as many eligible voters as possible. If you are 18 years and above, or if you will be 18 years on or before the 30th of April 2026, a Zambian citizen and in possession of the Green National Registration Card (NRC), you qualify to register. If you registered in 2020 or during continuous registration of voters and you still have your voter's card, you don't need to register again. The following services will be provided: new registrations, replacements of lost, destroyed or defaced voters' cards, transfers from one polling station to another, claims for omission on the register of voters, corrections of clerical errors and removal of deceased voters. Registration centers will be open daily from 8 hours including weekends. Note that the 15 days of voter registration exercise will have 3 phases. The first 2 phases will last 4 days each, while the final phase will last 5 days. To find open registration centers, check on the Commission